where do we begin?
On our channel, we like trying and testing keto recipes for all of you, and we like doing it in a fun way, a funny way, and that's just kind of like our personalities. We like having fun and laughing, but I'll start off by saying that we're not quitting YouTube, but I feel like we need to talk about something that has been weighing heavily on us since the middle of 2022, and we really haven't talked about it in public because it wasn't our story to share.
I mean, it was our story to share, but we weren't the ones going through it, I guess.
But we were.
But we were.
So we started to see a lot of growth on our channel in early 2022, and that's when things started to really pick up for us, sponsorship-wise and view-wise, and so we were extremely excited going into 2022. Sarah was still working at her job in the office, or whatever you want to call it, in downtown Chicago, and things were going well for us then. We found it easy to continue doing what we were doing, uploading a couple videos a week, editing those videos, and everything felt doable at that point and exciting.
Yeah.
We didn't even reach 100,000 subscribers yet, but things were moving along and we were having a lot of fun making content for all of you. In the middle of 2022, actually it was like June of 2022, our father was not feeling well, and our mother started to tell us when she would see us that she was worried about him.
Yeah. She didn't want us to be alarmed, but she was just like, yeah, I'm kind of worried about your dad. But it wasn't like she was like telling us all the time, I would say, only when we would see her.
In the beginning of June of 2022, I got a call from my mom saying that my father had some tests done and that he needed to go to the emergency room right away. I was actually going to go rent a cabin with my husband that day, and at that same moment, I remember the toilet overflowed in my house, and the water was rushing through my ceiling, and my mom was calling me saying this, that I needed to help get him to the car because he was really weak.
And he needed to go to the emergency room.
Right. And I was crying about the water coming through, and then I was crying about that. And Brad was like, it's just water. And I remember saying, my dad needs to go to the emergency room. So when I went over there, I looked at him and I was like, you look like E.T.
Yeah.
And I remember him being like hot, you know, but he really did look gray. So we loaded him into the car and I canceled my trip, just in case. And I think that they figured out immediately that there was something wrong because his hemoglobin, if you guys don't know, hemoglobin is like your blood.
Your red blood cells.
Yeah. Was in the 3s.
Yeah. And a normal is like 13.
Or 14.
Yeah.
Right. And so his hemoglobin was in the 3s. Anyway, so it was bad. And they said that they have never seen anybody, which is an accomplishment of him. He went on to tell many people that he was started off at a 3 hemo. On the way to the hospital to visit him, my father had called my mother, and my mom handed the phone to me because she was driving. And he said, they're moving me up to the 8th floor, oncology. And I said, why are they moving you there? Because I had no idea what was coming for us.
We thought maybe he was moved there because there was no other room in the hospital. So it was like a surge floor or something like that. And he said,
why do you think?
Why do you think? Yeah. And
just get here. And when we walked into the door, I remember holding my mom's hand as we were driving to the hospital. And I said, this is going to be hard, but we need to be there for each other. And she was like, yeah. So we walked in, and I remember my dad said that he had leukemia, acute myeloid leukemia, which is a very, very aggressive form of cancer of the blood, and that he was very scared. He was very frightened because they needed to confirm what type of mutations he had, and they needed to do a bone marrow biopsy, and he was very afraid of that because he had heard that it was really painful. So he was like denying it. He was like saying, I don't want to do that, and I refuse. And my dad's a scientist, or he was a scientist, so the doctor was trying to reason with him, like, John, you're a man of science, like, you know, you have to do this or whatever. And so I told him, I promise, I said, Dad, if you go through with this and you try to fight it, we will be there every step of the way, I promise. And so he agreed, even though he did say later that he was always going to do the bone marrow biopsy.
Yeah, right.
That was in 2022. And, you know, the channel was going well. We were doing well, and we were really excited for the future. And, you know, at that time, my dad really didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
He didn't understand YouTube. He actually did watch YouTube from time to time, but we told him that we had a YouTube channel, but he wasn't like really, he didn't really know like what we were up to and everything like that. So they started giving him blood and everything like that. I remember we were visiting with him in the hospital, and I said, Dad, you know, like, look at this video that we did or whatever. We were doing a sponsorship, and I wanted him to see it. And he, like, looked at it, and he started laughing.
Yeah.
Hysterically.
And we were like...
I was like, he's laughing.
Oh, he
like,
thinks it's funny. Okay.
I didn't, yeah, he thinks it's funny. Okay, but he was, like, laughing uncontrollably. And I was like, he thinks that this is all like some
joke.
Yeah, a joke or something. Whatever. And so I went home that day from the hospital, and I was just like,
well,
he doesn't get it. He's old. He doesn't understand anything about this and whatever.
Try not to take it offensively.
Right. I did a little bit, but I was just like, okay, he thinks it's silly or whatever. And I get a call from him because he was feeling better at this time because he had a bunch of blood pumped into him, and he was like, I just want to tell you that I am so blown away. That's the reaction that I was having. I cannot believe that this is what you're doing. I feel bad that I wasn't more involved. Yeah. I've been watching your videos all day. And he goes, I can't believe that you guys are doing this, blah, blah, blah. He was very, very impressed. So much so that he would tell people at the hospital that they're the keto twins. Like to random people that had no idea what he was talking about. It was like, there was a cardiologist that was checking on him, and he's like, they're the keto twins. And he's like, sorry?
Okay.
He's like, they're on YouTube. And the guy was like, He's like, they're YouTubers.
Dad would always ask what our number was.
Yeah.
He meant by like subscribers. Right. Like he's like, what's your number at? I remember like telling him we hit 100. That was like a good time. But another thing that happened during this entire time was we didn't know how much this would impact our daily lives. I was still working downtown at the time. And leukemia, this type of leukemia that he had is very aggressive, or was very aggressive. And so he was constantly at the hospital.
Well, I mean, in the beginning, it was like he was there.
Like his treatment cycle, his first treatment cycle was 5 days in a row.
Right.
And then he needed blood on top of that.
Well, we didn't know he was going to need blood at that time. But he could never maintain a good hemo.
We were at the hospital
a lot.
Multiple times a week, every week, for sometimes 8 hours at a time. Like, one of us were there with him. My dad and my mom never went alone to the hospital.
We promised.
We promised that we would be there. So we would switch off. But we had been at the hospital hundreds of times since 2022.
He had over 100 transfusions.
Yeah, this was our other job that we were managing. And we promised that we would do that. And we fulfilled that promise. But at the time, I was still working downtown. So not only... And then my job tried to make me commute back in. At the time, they wanted me to come to the office, and I'm like, I'm dealing with so much. I can't be commuting on the train, coming home, being on a train with hundreds of other people. And then my dad is someone who is, immune. So he doesn't have an immunity anymore with all this like chemo treatment.
He had no immune system.
So I had to be very careful about like me going in downtown and being around crowds of people. And it gave me a lot of anxiety, but just saying that, we had no idea that diagnosis would change our lives forever. He started the first round of treatment.
It seemed to be going well. It seemed to be
working.
But he did need transfusions about once every...
Yeah, we were still going to the thing every week.
We would go to the hospital to get his blood drawn, check, and sometimes he would need hemo, like maybe once every 7 days, a blood transfusion, and it was doable. It was like twice a week. Either Sarah and I would go, and then the next week it would be we'd have to go. But the next year, 2023, it started to get way more intense. He could not keep up his levels, and we didn't know why. Then we figured it out when they did another bone marrow biopsy that the treatment stopped working. And that's the thing about this type of cancer, is that you could treat it with something and it's working, and then it mutates out of that treatment. Right. Yeah. The treatment that had been working well with him for months now had stopped working, and now the cancer is building up inside his bone marrow, which is causing him to drop with hemo and drop with his immune system and drop with platelets, meaning the clotting in your blood, the platelets stop. All those things are controlled by your bone marrow function. And so he started to need to go to the hospital more.
He not only needed hemo, he needed platelets as well. And those, just one transfusion, just to give you an idea, platelets an hour and a half, not including the setup, the IV, everything like that, and hemo 3 hours at a time. It was like an 8-hour day. And he needed it almost every other day.
Yeah. So we were at the hospital sometimes 8 hours at a time while filming for the channel because we wanted to keep it going. Not only that, my father was watching the videos and he was constantly asking how
the business was doing.
How is it doing? Are you guys getting more subscribers? I'm watching your videos. And so we never talked about it ever because it wasn't our story to share. And we didn't want him to see that it was affecting us, but it clearly was affecting us. And so around April of that year, 2023, Sarah could no longer handle commuting downtown, filming for the channel, and my father going to the hospital, because I would go and then she would go, or sometimes I would go twice. And so Sarah decided to resign from her job because she could not handle it anymore and she wanted to be around more to help with my dad.
I didn't want to have to ask to go to the hospital. And not like my work wasn't supportive. They were, but like, you have obligations when you're working for someone. And yeah, they still expect you to do it 100%. So I just decided to put in my notice and decide, you know, that I wanted to be at home so I could help whenever needed without feeling any type of pressure. And so I gave my notice and I resigned from that position. And we went full in on YouTube at that time. That became our full-time jobs.
Right. And because of the nature of our content, like we do those, you know, we try recipes and everything like that, there was never really even a moment like that we could insert what was going on into our content without, I don't know, it feeling weird. And we would get comments from you guys saying, oh, this is the first time I've laughed in weeks. Thank you so much. And like, we just didn't want to bring everybody else down with what we were going through. And we needed that distraction as well because it started to get a lot more intense.
Yeah.
In the middle of last year, when my father, it seemed like it's like you did this treatment and his numbers would rebound, but then he would find out that it didn't work. And
it's
then,
almost like being re-diagnosed with cancer.
Right, every time.
Every 3 months or something like that. Like, it's back, it's mutated.
Right.
Your treatment's not working.
We have to try something else.
We have to look at other options. And it was like, yeah, every 3 months it was like getting the bad news again that he had had this cancer going on. And, you know,
he knew that too.
He knew
even
too,
when
yeah.
he was in remission in the beginning, he's a scientist, so he was constantly reading papers about it, constantly talking about it, and he just knew. He knew it was going to be back. So
it was always like a dark shadow or cloud that was like a little bit behind in the distance that you didn't know when it was going to catch up with you and you weren't going to be able to outrun it anymore, honestly. And during some of these times, like my dad, you know, we haven't talked about this, but like my dad would have like fevers, and if you are on chemo, if you have a fever, you have to go to the hospital and they will admit you. And then they will monitor you because infections are so terrible when you have a really low immune system. So there were times there when he would be admitted for weeks at a time. And
he was admitted for months.
He was admitted months, and we would go to the hospital and every single day, sometimes multiple times a day to spend. He didn't want to be alone ever. He never had to be alone for a day. But, you know, my mom and I, we would go. Emily would go with my mom, and maybe she would go back during the nighttime, or we were taking care of her dog, or there was just a lot of moving parts alongside the whole business. And at that time, we were also editing videos. And thankfully, we do have help with that now. We have some amazing editors that we work with now, but I couldn't imagine doing this without them. Because
during that time
especially, like when we started off, you know, having them join us, collaborating with editing, it just it freed up a little bit more time so that we could go to the hospital.
But that also meant that we needed to film a lot to make an income, to pay them, to keep it going. And I'm not saying that I regret anything that we've done. My father was extremely proud of us, and even later on, we'll talk about this, but he was like, are you filming?
Yeah.
Like, are you filming? I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm here with you right now, but we are going to go and film. And he was like, he didn't want to be a burden. He didn't want to be He's like, I don't want
affect the business.
Yeah,
in any
I don't
way.
want to affect your business and blah blah blah. So even though it did affect it, it was a worthwhile. He was
worth it.
Yeah, he was worth it. And so there were many treatments that happened, and in May, my sister got married. And the whole goal was, I have to stay alive for this wedding. I have to be alive for this wedding.
He wanted to make it there and walk her down the aisle.
Walk her down the aisle. And he wasn't able to walk her down the aisle. He was too weak because we did not know it then, but the treatment hadn't worked. And so you have like, well, if you were to consider 100% blast, meaning that your blood is being produced at like the top level, my father's cancer had grown to 85% was blocking his hemo at the time. And so right before my sister's wedding, leading up to it, he was getting blood and platelets every day. It's like 5 or 6 hours a day. We were driving, we were filming, and it was just a lot.
Thinking back, it's even hard
to
imagine that time. It just feels like a blur.
It was a blur.
Now. Yeah.
And I remember looking at him at the wedding and thinking there's no way that he's going to make it a couple more weeks. He was so weak. Even when we brought him home from the wedding, he was the best sport, though.
And his doctor showed up.
Yeah.
He really wanted, he invited his doctors to
the wedding.
And we were like, Dad, they might not come,
Yeah.
And like this one doctor, he actually came.
It was like a romance.
He came, and my dad was like he proved me wrong.
Yeah, that he
and
came
I didn't want to, I just didn't want him to feel disappointed that they wouldn't come, because they have commitments. They work on call. It wasn't like that they don't care about him, but this was like a momentous moment for him, and he was like, I'm going to invite my doctors because it's like they're a huge part of my life, and I've known them for like a year. And so I was just like, Dad, just don't think that they're going to come.
But he showed up.
But one of them did show up, and my dad was just like lit up, and that was cute. But so yeah, my dad was a good sport. He couldn't like dance with my sister or anything like that, but we got him home safely.
Throughout this process, he was like the best patient that you could ever ask for.
Right.
Because I don't think I knew my father well before we started this whole thing, because I didn't know how he was going to be. Some people get angry, resentful, and they lash out because they're not feeling well. My father was like the funniest, kindest patient ever. Like, we would laugh every day. Every day we
tried to
laugh.
make a light of it.
Right.
Even though it was pretty dark sometimes, like even meeting with the doctors, I hated those conversations. I hated waiting, to hear back about results, but my dad, he didn't let it affect him. He always tried to keep it light,
If he did, he knew.
He kept it to himself.
He knew that it was hard on everybody. He decided not to bring us, he decided to try to have the best attitude possible. Even though I knew he was anxious about it. I knew, because I think just like him, that that's all he thought about. And so he decided to not subject us to anything like that was going on with him. Around the end of 2023, I had my suspicions, and so did he, that the latest treatment did not work. And he started to bleed from his gums. And that had never happened before. I was really scared. But he didn't want to go to the hospital because he was like, nope, I don't want to go.
Yeah, because every time he went, he didn't leave for like
They
a
don't
month.
let him go. They keep him there. And so
I don't blame him, honestly.
Yeah. And so we drove him to the hospital the next day during his appointment, and they saw him and they were like, nope, you're admitted. And he's like,
yeah,
it's fine. When you don't have platelets, you cannot,
stop the bleeding.
Right.
Yeah.
You'll just bleed from your gums and everything. So anyway, he was admitted, and I had a terrible feeling about it. But he was sick for, a month or two before. He started to get weaker, and this plays into something we're going to talk about in a little bit. But, we got the news when they did some testing. They did another bone marrow biopsy, and the doctor said it didn't work. The chemo didn't work, and that there's nothing that they could do, and that his blasts were at 87%. That doesn't leave much time. And pretty much they told us that we needed to bring him home to die.
I mean, there was like a 1% chance that they could do like a mutation analysis to see if
and he thought maybe he would do that.
Something there that they could treat, but there was not much that they could do. There was pretty much nothing that they could do.
Right.
Except for throwing in that 1%, which I never agreed with. But anyway, pretty much he was going to die now, and that we needed to go home. And yeah.
We had to carry him into the house.
And that was the last time he left the house.
I drove him home, and he said he wanted me to drive him home. And I was like, are you sure? And
we
he's
were like asking him to go in an ambulance because
Yeah.
we wanted them to be able to get him in the house. But
I'm like, I am not an ambulance driver. Are you sure? And he's like, I want you to drive me home. Anyway, so we all, you know, my sister came in, started driving in from Virginia, and we held up in my mom's house and to facilitate dying. And it was very traumatic for all of us. And at that point, we weren't filming anymore. But my father was still asking if we're filming. But we kind of like just released the videos that we had and made sure that we were on time with sponsorships and everything like that. But like,
there were definitely some videos where you could see that we had been crying right before we filmed it.
Yeah, there were videos where I was crying right before we started. And he was like, are you still filming? Why are you here? I'm like, to help you. Yeah, but you should also be filming a video. And so I'm not going to blame him for that, but like he kept us going and we needed to keep going because it kept our minds off of a little bit of what was going on. But some of you guys have mentioned that Sarah and I have gained weight. And some of you guys have mentioned that my skin is looking really bad. And that hurts because the truth is, yeah, I've gained about 15 pounds in the last 4 months. And my skin has never been like this before. I'm covering it with a lot of makeup right now, but
we've never been through something this traumatic before. And I like to say that
we were keto, we were not.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you could eat keto and still gain weight. We were just not concerned about how much we were eating at that time. And so, yeah, I probably weigh around 180 something pounds. And it's like, there were more important things at that time. There were times where we didn't leave my mom's house for a week.
Yeah.
Because we were sleeping there. We were taking care of him. We didn't know what we were doing. We told him that too. We said, we don't know what we're doing. He's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
And he still was funny up until a couple of days before he died. It was like, and then he died.
The end.
To the end.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that he passed peacefully, but it was not peaceful for us. It was extremely difficult. And now we're supporting our mother who, you know, was married to my dad for 40 years and 42 years. I don't even know. And took care of him till the very end. And I've cried every day, sometimes before filming, but we always wanted to keep this channel light and not like spread it around how we were feeling.
Well, yeah, because we are people that are generally trying to make light
right,
of
and so was he.
Like,
so was he.
Yeah.
He was still cracking jokes and stuff like that, even when he was on hospice. And so were we. We were still laughing, which felt really weird.
Yeah,
but
it felt weird.
It felt weird to laugh, but we were laughing and we were crying and he was laughing and he was still cracking jokes. So that's just the kind of person that we are. But this kind of goes to the next thing is that we haven't really showed you guys like us outside of making
keto
content. And we were planning on doing it. We started a second channel called Technically Keto, and we were going to be posting on that channel more like broad topics about keto and us and everything like that. But we started it before things got really bad in 2022, and we just couldn't sustain it with everything that was going on with our lives and Sarah's job and everything like that. So we uploaded a couple videos, a bunch of you guys watched them, subscribed to that channel, and then we just abandoned it because we couldn't keep up with everything. Remember
we abandoned it. We just put it on pause.
We put a pin in it. But you remember this thing? Some of you guys were asking about the hydroponic thing. That thing died because we couldn't.
It didn't die. It like bolted.
We just didn't care about it. We were so busy. It just went all crazy and then collapsed, and then the seed of the things that we bought died, and we were just like, you know what? Wrap it up. We still have it. It's just...
Yeah, I like it.
We didn't have time to do anything outside of filming, bringing him to the hospital, supporting him, my mom. But yeah, sometimes you just don't know
what life is going to throw at you.
Right, and you don't know what people are going through. You just don't. Like, we've been going through something really intense, but we didn't want to, like, bring you guys down by telling you. And not only that, my dad was a private person. And we didn't want him to see a video where we were struggling because he was watching our channel. So,
and my dad, you know, we just didn't want to put his business out there in the world. He didn't tell a lot of people that he was sick. And so we didn't feel like it was our story to tell, even though we were a huge part of it. He died, and it hasn't been easy. I mean...
Oh, don't worry. We cry often. We just don't do it on camera, typically, so...
No, I mean, I feel like I met up with my friends, and I'm like, I'm going to tell you something now, and, like, just kind of
it was like The Exorcist, where Sarah just, like...
Like, the guy was just bringing over more drinks, because we hadn't talked about it publicly, so... There's part of us that wants a platform where we can talk about whatever we want. And that's kind of, like, where we're going with this. Is that...
There is a point to this video.
There's a point to this video, and it's that we're going to continue making keto content. We live keto. We're going to be focusing on, you know, getting back down, losing 15 pounds, 20 pounds, beyond, whatever, and focusing on that for a healthy, you know, 2024 and beyond, hopefully, knock on wood. And we also want, like, a platform where we can talk about things that are not only keto.
Right. Like, things about, should I say middle-aged?
Yeah.
We're middle-aged.
I wouldn't say it like that.
Oh, okay.
That seems like a negative.
We're
like
middle-aged. And you know what? I still feel, and my dad would be happy that I say that we have life left to live.
Yes.
And we want to feel good. And we want to be happy and fulfilled. So we would, you know, this is a great invite to our podcast, or whatever it's going to be, where we kind of explore, you know, just being women in our 40s. And we're not there yet. Let's not. But it's like, I don't really think that aging has to be negative. Where we talk about things that have to do with life over there. Probably more positive things than this video. But that's life, you know?
Yeah, we just wanted to make this video to tell you guys about what's been going on.
Yes, we've gained weight.
Here. Well, I wasn't going to say that, but just...
I mean, the people that comment that, I know that some of you guys are going to be really mad that people have. And you probably have noticed it. Honestly, I didn't really even notice it because I wasn't focused on it. I just weighed myself a couple days ago and I was like, okay. Like, I gained 15 pounds. So... but then again, going through something like this, it's like vanity and stuff like that has not.
Well, I mean,
it's like I don't know
we were
if I
hundreds of pounds more heavier.
Yeah,
so even if I gain 15 pounds,
I could gain 15 pounds in a day.
Well, no, I just consider this a win. Like because previously I would go off completely off the rails and gain back not 15 pounds but 60, 70. So being through one of the most stressful parts of my life and I gained 15 pounds. I consider that a win. Other people might not, but I've been yo-yo dieting my entire life, so I consider that a win.
Right.
Whatever. I don't know. I don't. Life is just like this. These types of moments in your life put things in perspective. I care about that, but like it goes into the back of your mind because you're just trying to make it through. You couldn't see 10 feet ahead of you during this time. There were times when I felt like I was on a spaceship. Especially when my dad was at home in hospice. I felt like nobody understood what I was going through. Even like my own husband, I didn't think he knew what I was going through. I would come home for like 5 minutes, take a shower, grab new clothes, and it was like, I'd see people walking down the street, like coming out of school, like high school or something. I'm like, they have no idea what I'm going through right now. Like, I couldn't think about how I looked, let alone how much I had gained, what I was eating. I was just trying to keep going at that point. Now looking back at it, it's like, you know, the clouds, it's a little brighter out. Like, my dad is no longer suffering. But, like, I feel like I'm now motivated to make content. Motivated to keep pushing the boundaries of YouTube and, you know, providing content for all of you guys if you guys want to watch it.
Let's share some photos of my dad.
Memories and photos.
We'll just share a couple photos of our dad. And he was always a goofball. And... he was extremely smart.
My dad was a chemist for the Illinois State Police. He was part of it was like a director of the Illinois Racing Lab, which they kind of like.
He was on 60 Minutes.
Yes, we can show you a clip of that.
He was really smart. He liked to study physics and other things that we didn't get that from him.
No.
He would be very upset.
He wanted us
He wanted us so badly to be interested in that, but we were always more on like the creative side. And he was not.
No.
So
we called him the anti-handyman.
Yeah. He would always destroy everything trying to fix it. But he was funny and he would want us to keep going, and said that about 24 hours before he died. Are you filming? Are you working? No.
No, we're not.
I'm like, oh yeah, we're filming a video right now. Dad.
Yeah.
So we want to share more of us, or maybe like not our opinions about things, but more broad things where, you know, it's not just us goofing around in the kitchen. It's us goofing around
in life.
In life. Right. And so follow this channel and it will have a name by this time. I'm going to link our first episode of this channel that doesn't have a name yet. You know, but thank you for those who supported us. Thank you to our sponsors who supported us during this time. The people that, you know, continue to sponsor videos on our channel. They are the ones that make this possible, because we wouldn't have been able to do it otherwise. Right. We do say that sponsors help keep our channel going, and we mean it, because it supports both of us now. Because Sarah had to quit her job in order to help out my dad. Support our sponsors! Because AdSense isn't doing it. But alright, so click on this video right here and we will see you over there. Anyway, I'm Emily.
And I'm Sarah.
And we are the Keto Twins, signing out.